of registration till the date of registration, whatever invoice is there, for that revised invoice can be issued. Then for amount less than 200, no invoice is required. Then we have seen bill of supply, that is whenever exempted goods or goods are sold by composition dealer, bill of supply is being issued. Then we have seen receipt voucher. Receipt voucher is issued whenever taxable advance is received. Then we have seen advance refund voucher. Refund voucher whenever advance received, work is not done, then refund is given. For that purpose, refund voucher is issued. Then we have seen RCM invoice. So RCM invoice is your inward purchase invoice under section 9.3 and 9.4. For that inward purchase, when you make the payment, that is the payment voucher that we have seen. So these are all the documents. Apart from that, we have seen what is delivery challan. So these documents we have seen, and what are the contents, when they have to issue, those things we have seen and understood. So now we'll continue with the question and answers. And we have also seen about the e-invoice and e-way bill. Sultan Industries Limited Delhi entered into a contract with Prakash Entrepreneurs Delhi for supply of spare parts of a machine on 7th September. The spare parts were delivered on 30th September. Sultan Industries removed the finished spare part from its factory on 29th September. Determine the date by which the invoice should be issued by Sultan Industry under GST law. So you have to tell me when is the date by which the invoice should be issued by Sultan Industries. Type in the chat box. What is the date by which the invoice should be issued? What happened? No reply. See, I cannot tell every time that give the answer, give the answer. Yesterday itself, I have informed that only those who are willing to give the answers has to join today's session. You are wasting your time also and my time also. Why no one is giving any answer? What is the last date by which the invoice should be issued? In first question I am asking. Is my voice audible or not? None of them are replying. Then what is the use of taking the class? For this also no reply. And why? See, is anyone hearing or not? Can't you give any reply? My voice audible or not? After so much time, what are getting? Why no one is answering the question? In exam, you will sit like this. Okay, then I am cancelling this question answer session. One last chapter is there. I am completing the theory and closing the chapter, GST classes. Now the screen is visible. Is the screen visible or not?
Yes, sir, but PDF அது மாதிரி எதுவுமே ஓப்பன் ஆகல சார்.
Please type in the chat box, is the screen visible or not? Then from so much time, why you are not replying in the chat box when I am asking? All are sleeping. If you don't want, please don't join the class and waste my time. So last chapter is returns. Last chapter is returns. In returns, we are going to see what are all the returns you have to file under the GST. There are basically two important returns. One is GSTR1, that is furnishing of the details of outward supply. Next is the GSTR3B, which we have to file, and there are some other returns. So for the provisions of return, section 37 to section 48, section 37 to section 47 is the provision dealing with the returns. Section 37 deals with furnishing details of outward supply. Section 38 deals with furnishing details of inward supply. Section 39 deals with furnishing of returns. Section 40, first return. Section 41, claim to input tax credit and provisional acceptance thereof. Section 42, matching, reversal and reclaim of input tax credit. Section 43, matching, reversal and reclaim and reduction in output tax liability. Section 44, annual return. Section 45, final return. Section 46, notice to return defaulters, and section 47 is for levy of late fees. And goods and service tax practitioners, section 48. So certain definitions relating to returns. Common portal means the portal, the common goods and service tax portal referred to section 46, that is the gst.gov.in. Electronic cash ledger means the electronic cash ledger referred to subsection 1 of section 49. Electronic credit ledger. Electronic credit ledger means credit ledger referred to subsection 2 of section 49. Exempt supply. So exempt supply already definition we have seen in detail about electronic cash ledger and electronic credit ledger we will see in further parts. Then goods and service tax practitioner means any person who has been approved under section 48 to act as such practitioner. Described popular officer, quarter, registered person, these things already we have seen. Then a valid return means return furnished under subsection 1 of section 39 on which self-assessment tax has been paid in full. So only when the self-assessment tax has been paid in full, then only the return is a valid return. So furnishing of details of outward supply, section 37 read with rule 59. So this is your first return which we have to file. Who is required to file the details of outward supplies? The details of outward supplies of both goods and services. What do you mean by outward supply? Any supply of service, that is your sales, whether service or goods or anything going outside your business is an outward supply. You are selling a fixed asset. You are a registered dealer. You are selling a fixed asset. Then also it is an outward supply. Your regular sales is your outward supply. You are providing service. That is also a outward supply. The details of outward supply on both goods and services are required to be furnished by every registered person, including a casual taxable person, except the following: except the input service distributor, non-resident taxable person, person paying tax under composition scheme, person deducting tax at source, person collecting tax at source, supplier of OIDAR. So every registered person, what they will do, they will furnish a details of outward supplies, including the casual taxable person, except 6 categories of person are not required to submit the outward taxable supply. That is, 1, the input service distributor, 2, the non-resident taxable person, 3, person paying tax under composition scheme, 4, person deducting tax at source, person collecting tax at source, supplier of OIDAR. These 6 category of registered dealer need not provide the details of outward supplies. So whatever sales you make, that details you have to provide online. And the form for filing the details of outward supply is GSTR 1. So this GSTR 1 has to be filed every month. And in case of nil GSTR 1 can also be filed. So what is the due date of submitting the GSTR 1? The GSTR 1 due date is for the particular month is on or before 10th. Now it is changed to 11th. 11th of the day, 11th day of the immediately succeeding month. So you have to make a change. The date is 11th, not 10th. So these things are not applicable, that the GSTR 1 cannot be filed from 15th to succeeding. These things are not available now. These things are cancelled. So what is the due date for submission of GSTR 1? The GSTR 1 due date submission is 11th day of the immediately succeeding month. What does that mean? So if for the example, for the month of January, whatever outward supplies I have made, for that, when I have to file the details of outward return, I have to file by 11th of February. Before 11th of February, I have to file my GST returns. The details of outward supply pertaining to the month of October will be required to be furnished on or before 11th of November. GSTR 1. This part you ignore, it is not applicable now. This has been removed. This part and all is not applicable. You can file the return even after 11th. And the due date of filing the GSTR 1 may be extended by the Commissioner of the State or GST Commissioner depending upon the situation. And even quarterly filing of return is there, which is available, but this quarterly filing of GSTR 1 is not applicable now. So this also you have to cancel it. Don't read it. It is no use. So what is only monthly GSTR 1, quarterly return filing procedure is there, which is separate, which I will explain you later on. Normally, GSTR 1 can be filed only after end of the current period. But in certain cases, GSTR 1 can be filed in between also. That is 2 situations. One is cancellation, casual taxable payer after closure of business, and cancellation of GSTN of normal taxpayer. So 2 categories of person can file the GSTR 1 in between of the year also. In between of the month also. Who are these 2 categories? One is casual taxpayer after the closure of business and cancellation of GSTN of the normal taxpayer. So a taxpayer who has applied for cancellation of registration is allowed to file GSTR1 after the confirming the receipt of application. So once a taxpayer applies the cancellation of GST registration application and it is confirmed, then he can file the GSTR1 in between period. So what are the contents of GSTR1? GSTR1 is details of outward supply. So it contains basic and other details. So two categories. One is the basic and other details. Second is details of outward supply. It will have your company GSTN number, their legal name, trade name, aggregate turnover in the previous year and month, HSN wise summary of outward supplies, details of documents. So this is the basic details. Details relating to outward supply, your B2B including your UIN holders. B2B means business to business. Whenever you are supplying goods from one registered dealer to another registered dealer, then it is B2B suppliers. If you are supplying goods to UIN holders, that also details has to be provided. Then these B2B and UIN holders will be provided invoice-wise details has to be uploaded. Invoice-wise details has to be uploaded. B2C interstate supplies where invoice value is more than 2.5 lakhs. So if you are making any supplies B2C in an intrastate transaction means within two states, that is from one state to another state, and the value of such invoice value is more than 2.5 lakhs. Say I am in Chennai, I am selling goods to a person in Bangalore and the value of goods is more than 2.5 lakhs. Then the details of B2C also has to be provided invoice wise only for those invoices where it is an interstate supply and value more than 2.5 lakhs. Then consolidated details of other B2C supplies. So your total sale consists of one what B2B supplies to UIN holders, so that will be provided invoice wise. B2B supplies will be provided invoice wise. B2C interstate more than 2.5 lakhs invoice wise we have to provide. Apart from these, all other B2C supplies consolidated value, invoice wise value not required, only total value is required to be provided. Then zero rated and deemed export. So in case of zero rated means what? Zero rated means what? Supply made to export or SEZ is zero rated. Then zero rated and deemed export invoice wise breakup has to be provided. Then in case for these supplies in the past you have issued any debit note or credit note. Yesterday we have discussed who should issue debit note or credit note. Who should issue debit note or credit note? So debit note or credit note can be issued only by supplier, and these details has to be uploaded by the supplier in the GST portal. Then your nil rated, exempted, non-GST turnover, only value during the month, whatever nil rated, exempted, non-GST turnover, those things you can update it. Then amendment for prior period, adjustment received, advance received. Advance received, advance adjusted. So amendment for prior period means what? In GSTR1, once you file the return, you cannot revise the return. So once GSTR1 is filed, you cannot revise the return. If you want to revise the return, then what has to be done? If you want to revise the return, then you have to, there is no option for revising the return. You only have to make an amendment. Say previous month you have made a mistake in the invoice, value you have provided wrongly. In the invoice the value is correct, but while filing the GST return you have provided the wrong value. Then if you want to make the changes in the next month, you can amend the invoice. You cannot amend the return. So amendment of previous period invoice is possible in GSTR1, but revision of the invoice is not possible. So advances received, advances adjusted. We have seen in the document that whenever an taxable advance is received, we are going to issue a receipt voucher. And once the work is completed, we are going to adjust it against the sales. So all those advances received and adjusted, these details you need to provide in the GSTR1. So GSTR1 will contain your details of B2B supplies, UIN supplies, invoice wise, B2C supplies, interstate supplies, more than invoice value more than 2.5 lakhs, invoice wise, other B2C supplies, consolidated value, 0 rated, deemed export, invoice wise, debit note, credit note. If it is B2B, then invoice wise. If it is B2C, consolidated. Then nil rated, exempted, non-GST, amendment for prior period, advances received and advances adjusted. So these are the contents of the GSTR1. So already I have explained invoice wise, consolidated, all those things. What is B2B, B2C? B2C means whenever you are supplying to an unregistered person or a consumer. Mr. XY makes intra-state supply, taxable supply for rupees 10,000 and 50,000 to Mr. AB, a registered person, and 1 lakh to Mr. DE, an unregistered person. He also makes interstate taxable supplies for 2,60,000 and 45,000 to RS, a registered person, and 1,50,000 to OP, an unregistered person. So in the GSTR1, Mr. XY will report invoice-wise details of intrastate supply made to AB and interstate supply made to RS in GSTR1. So here intrastate supply 10,000, 50,000 to AB registered person. So that has to be provided invoice-wise. For DE, unregistered person, not required invoice wise. He makes an interstate taxable supply of 2,60,000 and 45 to RS, registered person, then invoice wise. Same way 1,50,000 to OP, unregistered, not required, only consolidated value is required. One more thing, scanned copies of the invoice are not required to be uploaded. Only the specified field like the invoice value, the taxable value, the GST, what is the value, what is the rate of tax, those details only need to be uploaded in the GSTR1. And along with this, you also have to upload the HSN code. That is whatever goods you are selling, for that you have HSN code, and whatever services you are supplying, you have the SAC code. So whatever goods you have sold and supplied, for that HSN code and SAC code should be provided in the GSTR1. So HSN code is mandatory from 1st of January 1st of April 2021. HSN code is mandatory in all the invoice. You can ignore this part. This is only position till 31/3/2021. So after 1/4/2021, the position is that for up to 5 crores turnover, dealer 4-digit, and if up to 5 crores turnover, B2C supplies 4-digit is optional. For more than 5 crores, 6-digit HSN code you have to provide. The turnover of Yellow Lemon Private Limited, Red Pepper Private Limited, and Blueberry Private Limited in the previous financial year is 1.5 crores, 4.8 crores, and 6 crores respectively. So Yellow Lemon Limited turnover how much? 1.5 crores. So he has to provide 4-digit HSN code. For B2C, HSN code is mandatory. Why? Since aggregate turnover less than 5 crores. Same way, Red Pepper turnover is 4.58 crores. So here also HSN code or SAC code, first 4-digit you have to provide. For B2C, optional. And in case of Blueberry, the turnover is 6 crores. Then HSN code is mandatory. So HSN code is mandatory, and you have to provide the 6-digit HSN code for all the invoices which is issued. So this is from with effect from 1st April 2021. So how the details are amended? So we have amendment option in the GSTR 1. So whatever amendment is there, you have to do all your amendment within due date of filing the returns under section 39 for the month of September following the end of the financial year to which such details pertain. So nil return can also be filed. So first return what we have seen the GSTR 1. So GSTR 1 deadline is 11th of the following month. So immediately following month you have to provide the details in GSTR 1, your outward supplies, so B2B supplies, B2C supplies, all the details you have to provide. Next important return is GSTR 3B. So GSTR 3B Rule 61 of CGST rule. So section 39(1) describes monthly return for every registered person other than input service distributor or non-resident taxable person or composition taxpayer, or a person deducting tax at source, person collecting tax at source, that is the electronic commerce operator, and supplier of OIADR located in a non-taxable territory providing such service to a online non-taxable online recipient. So every dealer other than these 6 category have to file their return monthly in GSTR 3B. Initially, if you see, when GST was introduced, the form was GSTR 3, but the form never came into applicability due to the unpractical position of the form. So instead of GSTR 3, they have introduced GSTR 3B form, and that form is the main important form to file the return. So what is the due date of filing the return is, the return has to be filed by the 20th of the succeeding month for the relevant month. So if you have to file the return for the month of January, GSTR 3B, what is the due date? Due date is 20th of February. Again, the due date is split into 3 parts. If a person is having aggregate turnover of more than 5 crores and above, then the due date is 20th of the next month. If the turnover is less than 5 crores or up to 5 crores, then there will be 2 due dates. One is 22nd and another one is 24th. So for whom it is 22nd and for whom it is 24th, the Indian states and union territory are divided into 2 parts. So some of the states and union territory, they have to file by 22nd. Some of the states and union territory have to file by 24th. So it depends upon which state you are, and accordingly the due date will change. In Tamil Nadu, the due date of filing the GSTR 3B is 22nd. Same way in some other state, it may be 24th. Why this 3 due date is provided is because to manage the website load. We know we have more than 1.25 crore registered dealer. So normally in the last date, many of them file the return and the website gets blocked. Because of this, they have given 3 dates. If the turnover is more than 5 crores, 20th of the next month. Turnover less than 5 crores, 22nd or 24th, depending upon the state or union territory where you are residing. And even a nil return should be filed. So what are the contents? One is the basic detail, legal name, GST number, and which month you are filing. Apart from that, you will provide only the summarized details of outward supplies and inward supplies liable to charge. That is, for the month, what is your total outward supply? For that outward supply, what is your total IGST payable, CGST payable, SGST payable? If you have your export or zero rated supply, those details. If any liability is there for reverse charge mechanism, then that details. What is the ITC you are claiming? What is the ITC you are reversing? Then the set off of tax. That is your input against the output, and then the payment of tax. And you also provide the summarized value of your exempt, nil rated and non-GST supply. Then payment on TDS and TCS. These are all the contents of GSTR 3B. So GSTR 3B is a simple return containing the summarized details of your turnover, tax payable, input tax credit claim, adjusted, paid against cash or tax TDS and TCS. Then GSTR 4, this is applicable only for the composition dealers. So those who are composition dealers, only for those person, this GSTR 4 is applicable. This is an annual return. This return has to be filed annually and only applicable for the composition supplier. And the due date of filing the GSTR 4 is to be furnished by 30th April of the succeeding financial year. So for the financial year 2021, what is the last date of filing the GSTR 4? 30th of April 2021 is the last date of filing the return for the GSTR 4. And normally for the quarterly, that is the composition dealer, quarterly they have to pay the tax. So every quarter they have to pay the tax by CMP 08 for the quarter by 18th day of the month succeeding the quarter. So every quarter they have to pay the tax. So content of GSTR 4, invoice wise details of all inward supplies, that is your intrastate and interstate supplies from registered and unregistered person including reverse charge, summary of self-assessed tax paid and your turnover, and details of tax details of tax payable. So even nil return has to be filed. Then GSTR 5 is the return for non-resident taxable person. So who is a non-resident taxable person? Someone from outside India coming to India and doing a business for a temporary purpose. That is a small period, maybe 1 year or 2 years or a very small period. So not 1 year, that is the based on the validity of the certificate. We have seen earlier that casual taxable person and non-registered taxable person, the certificate is valid for a limited period. And what is that limited period? The limited period is validity 90 days and which can be further extended by the commissioner to another 90 days. So this is the validity and based on that. So non-resident taxable person should file a return called as GSTR 5. That return has to be filed by non-resident taxable person. So last date of filing return should be within 20 days after the end of the calendar month or within 7 days after the last date of validity period of registration. So we have seen that non-registered taxable person, his certificate of registration is valid for the particular period. So what is the due date? If it is for the month, then 20 days, within 20 days from the end of the month or within 7 days from the day of last date of validity of period in the certificate, whichever is earlier. And if you delay in filing the return, then interest penalty should also be paid. And for the non-resident taxable person, annual return need not be filed. So again, in GSTR 3B, if you make any mistake, you cannot revise the return. You only can amend the values in the succeeding month. Ms. Pragriya, a taxpayer registered under regular scheme, section 9, files GSTR 3B for the month of October and November on 20th November. After filing the return, she disclosed that the value of taxable supply has been underreported therein. So what has to be done? Can she file a revised return? She cannot file a revised return in the next month return. Whenever she is filing the next month return, when she is filing, at that time, whatever value is underreported, that value has to be added along with the next month return and shown in the GST return. And proper working should be available with them. Whatever returns have been filed under GST, it has to be e-verified either by OTP or Aadhaar OTP or the digital signature. So that is mandatory. Next is the annual return. Now what is annual return? During the month you file what? First you file the GSTR 1, then you file the GSTR 3B. This goes on for a year. In the end of the financial year, annual return should be filed to match the returns with the book data. Sometimes what happens, your book data and the return data is not matching. To make it match, in case you have made any mistake or to update those details, one annual return option is given. So this annual return is called as GSTR 9. GSTR 9 should be filed by all registered person except the following person. So except the 5 categories of following person: 1, the casual taxable person, non-resident taxable person, input service distributor, person authorized to deduct or collect tax at source under section 5152, person supplying OIDAR services from outside India to unregistered person in India. The annual return for the financial year needs to be filed by 31st December of the next financial year. So for financial year 2021, what is the last date of filing the annual return? 31st December 2021. And the due date may also be extended by the commissioner. So for financial 2021, the due date of filing the return is 31st December, but this is extended by the commissioner till 28th February by way of notification. And then along with the annual return, a reconciliation report has to be filed. Earlier it was certified by chartered accountant, but now it is not certified, that is GSTR 9C. Again, GSTR 9, as on date amendment is made, not all the registered dealers should be filed. For dealers whose aggregate turnover is up to 2 crores, GSTR 9 is not compulsory, it is optional. If they want, they can file. If they don't file, then also no problem. So GSTR 9 is optional for aggregate turnover up to 2 crores. If aggregate turnover is more than 2 crores, then GSTR 9 is mandatory. If aggregate turnover is more than 5 crores, then GSTR 9C is mandatory. So 9C. And then there is a return called final return, that is GSTR 10. Who should file this final return? GSTR 10 will be filed by those dealers who are cancelling their registration. And this has to be done within the cancellation of registration should be done within 3 months of the date of cancellation. Within 3 months of the date of cancellation, the GSTR 10 should be filed. Then GSTR 11 is filed by the UIN holders. Now who is UIN holders? Unique identity number holders. For the purpose of claiming the refund of taxes paid, they will file the GSTR 11. So what are the important returns? One is GSTR 1, your details of outward supply. 2 is the GSTR 3B, your monthly return, and then GSTR 4, yearly for composition dealer, CMP 08 for composition dealer, GSTR 9, your annual return, GSTR 9C, your statement of reconciliation, GSTR 10, final return, GSTR 11, UIN holders return. These are all the important return. One thing which is not there is the quarterly return. So Presently, there is an option of quarterly return filing, but there are certain conditions to it. So, they have from 5th October, on 5th October, the council has recommended that a quarterly return filing procedure to be introduced, which will be effective from 1st January 2021. And this quarterly return filing is applicable only for those dealers whose aggregate turnover is below 5 crores. So it is optional. If they want, they can use this quarterly return filing option, or they can use the monthly return filing. So what is the system of quarterly return filing? In system of quarterly return filing, in normal return filing, we file GSTR1 monthly and GSTR3B monthly. But in system of quarterly return filing, you don't file GSTR1, you file only IFF. That is instead of GSTR1, monthly you are going to file invoice furnishing facility. And that has to be filed by 13th of the month succeeding the month. So IFF is invoice furnishing facility. It will contain only the details of your B2B outward supplies. It will contain only the details of B2B outward taxable supply. It will not contain all the details. It will contain the B2B outward taxable supplies up to 50 lakhs you can provide in the invoice furnishing facility. So IFF instead of GSTR1 monthly for quarterly return filers. For quarterly return filers, every month they have to pay 35% of the net tax liability of the previous quarter. So as per the previous quarter, whatever is the tax liability, 35% they have to pay in the next month. So 35% in the first month of the quarter, 35% in the next month of the quarter, and the balance in the last month of the quarter. So once the quarter is over, then GSTR1 3B will be filed by the quarterly return filers. So quarterly return filers option is available, but again, even though they say quarterly return filing option, monthly compliance is there. Monthly IFF invoice furnishing facility has to be provided for all B2B supplies only up to 50 lakh rupees. 2, monthly you have to make a tax payment of 35% of the previous quarter for the first and second month. 3, third quarter you have to pay the balance tax and file GSTR 3B return. So that is the quarterly return filing procedure. So the last part, that is a goods and service tax practitioner. So under the, okay, we have missed out the interest and late fee. Yeah. Yeah, what happens if you delay in filing the return? If you delay in file the return, then what happens? 2 things will be applicable. One is your late fees. That is, if you delay in filing the return, on per day basis, late fee will be levied. So every day basis, 50 rupees late fee will be levied. And apart from that, whatever tax payment you have to do on that delayed payment, you have to pay interest. So you have to pay interest and late fee, both the things you have to pay in case you delay in filing the return. So what is the late fee? The quantum of late fee is rupees 100 every day for such failure, or rupees 5,000, which is lower. But later on, they have reduced the quantum of the fees. They have made 25 rupees per day. That is 25 CGST, 25 SGST. And for nil return filers, it is 20 rupees. 10 rupees or 20 rupees, the rate has been changed. Next is the GST practitioners. Now, the government has introduced a concept of goods and service tax practitioners. What does that mean? There is certain class of person who will help the businessman to file the return and do the GST compliance. They are called as goods and service tax practitioners, that is GSTPs. So a registered person may authorize and approve GSTP to furnish information on his behalf to the government. So what a registered person can do, he can file the return by himself, or he can authorize a GST Suvidha provider, the GSTP, that is the GST practitioner, as an authorized person to file return on his behalf. The manner of approval of GSTP, their eligibility, condition, duty and obligation, manner of removal, his function has been prescribed in Rule 83, 83A and 84. GSTN provided. So these GSTP are provided with a separate user ID and password. So first is, for the purpose of GSTP, there is a certain eligibility is there. Only after the eligibility and the writing of the test, they can become GSTP. And after once they become GSTP, separate user ID and password is given to them to enable to work on behalf of the client. So who is eligible to become a goods and service tax practitioner? The eligibility criteria for GST is explained by way of diagram. A person who is an Indian citizen, person of sound mind, not adjudicated as insolvent, not been convicted by a competent court. So Indian citizen, person of sound mind, not adjudicated as insolvent, not been convicted by a competent court is plus. So it should be a person. A company cannot become a GSTP. Only a person can become a GSTP. Plus, he should satisfy any of the condition. Retired officer or commercial tax department of any state government, CBIC, who during the service under government has worked not lower than the rank of Group B Gazette officer for a period more than 2 years. Second, enrolled as a sale tax practitioner or tax return preparer under the earlier indirect tax laws for a period not less than 5 years. Has acquired the prescribed qualification mentioned below. So any of the one condition can be satisfied. A graduate or a postgraduate degree or equivalent examination having a degree in commerce, law, banking, including higher auditing and business administration or business management from any Indian university established by any law for time being in force. Degree examination of any foreign university recognized by Indian university as equivalent to degree examination mentioned in subclass 1. Any other examination notified by the government on the recommendation of the council for this purpose. Any degree examination of an Indian university or any foreign university recognized by any Indian university as equivalent degree has passed the final exam of ICAS Indian Cost and Accountants. So these are the pre-qualification. One, he should be a person, or he should have these degrees, or he should be part of these three things. So then he can be registered for a GSTP. So what activities a GSTP can do? They can furnish the details of outward supplies on behalf of the client, furnish the monthly, annual return or final return, make deposit for credit into electronic cash ledger, furnish information for generation of e-way bill, furnish details of cancellation in the prescribed channel, then file an application for amendment, cancellation, enrollment, then intimation of tax, file tax refund. So all those things a GSTP can do on behalf of the client. What is the procedure for enrollment of GSTP? So procedure for enrollment of GSTP is that first an application in a prescribed form may be made in an electronic to a GST portal. So first those who are having the prescribed qualification, they will log into the GST portal and then they will make an application for becoming a GSTP, that is GST practitioner. Then the application will be scrutinized and GSTP certificate will be granted in the prescribed form. In case it is rejected, then the proper officer will give a reason, that is ask for a reason, opportunity of being heard, and if proper or reasons are provided, then they may enroll it. But before enrollment, he has to go for a training period. So any person who has been enrolled as a GSTP by virtue of him being enrolled as a sales tax practitioner or tax return practitioner. So this is for the existing dealer. So those who have enrolled, no person have enrolled as a GSTP is eligible to remain enrolled unless he passes such examination conducted by the National Academy of Customs and Indirect Taxation. So those who have registered for GSTP, they have to pass the examination which is provided by the NACIN. So modes of filing return, it is only the GST portal. You can file the return either by offline utility or online or through GST Suvidha providers. So GSTR 1, 3B, 4, 5, 9, 10, 11, these are the returns we have already seen. So with this we complete the last part of the GST chapter 10. Next questions. Mr. X, a regular taxpayer, did not make any taxable supply during the month of July. Is he required to file GSTR 3B? Yes or no? Is he required to file GSTR 3B or not? So yes, he has to file what? He has to file a nil return. So he has to file a nil return. If a return has been filed, how can it be revised if some changes are required to be made? Can a return be revised? In GST, can a return be revised? And what is the procedure for revision? How it can be revised? It can be revised through amendment in the return. Okay. Messrs. Kavon Enterprises, a registered supplier of designer wedding dresses under regular scheme, has aggregate annual turnover of 30 lakhs in the preceding financial year. It is of the view that current financial year it is permitted to file statement of outward GSTR 1 on, see, this question is not required because this process is changed. Now quarterly return IFF is required provided he is opting that quarterly return filing. So this question is not required. Mr. Kohli is a registered supplier in the state of Gujarat. He is filing GSTR 1 every month. During the month of February, he went out of India and thus could not do any business transaction during that month. He believes that as there is no transaction, there is no need to file GSTR 1 for the month of February. Is it correct? Explain. So if no transaction is there, should he file GSTR 1 or not? In case of no transaction, should the GSTR 1 be filed or not is the question. In case of nil transaction, should the GSTR 1 be filed? Yes, nil filing should be done. Nil filing should be done. Okay. Mr. Kalpesh is a registered dealer in Kerala, paying tax under composition levy scheme from 1st April. However, he opts to pay. Okay, this you can ignore. Okay, this part I have not taken. See, a return for GST or 3B, you cannot break and file. So it can be filed continuously only. So if you are filing a return for the month of April, you want to file the return for the month of May. First you have to file April return, then only you can file the May return. So there is no option that in between you can take any month and file the return. No. So GST or 3B continuously only you can file the return. Okay, with this we complete this chapter. We will go to this previous chapter and take the question answers. Sultan Industries Limited, Delhi, entered into a contract with Prakash Entrepreneurs, Delhi, for supply of spare part of a machine on 7th September. The spare parts were delivered on 30th September. Sultan Industries Limited removed the finished spare part from its factory on 29th September. Determine the date by which the invoice should have been issued by Sultan Industries. What is the due date of filing the invoice? Issuing the invoice.
September.
No reply. Section 31. What is the last date by which the invoice should be issued? So here, as per section 31, in case of supply of goods, the goods invoice should be issued either at the time of removal or before that. In this case, they entered into contract when 7th September and the spare parts were delivered on 30th September and it was removed from factory on 29th September. So when the invoice should be issued, it can be issued on or before 29th September. Right, very good. MBM caretakers, a registered person, provides the services of repair and maintenance of electrical appliances. On April 1st, it has entered into an annual maintenance contract with P for its air conditioner and washing machine. As per terms of contract, maintenance will be provided on the first day of each quarter of the relevant financial year, and the payment of the same will also be due on that date on which the service is rendered. During the year, it provides the service on 1st April, July 1st, October 1st, January 1st. So as per in terms of contract, when should MBM caretaker issue the invoice? So this is in case of service. In case of service, what is the last date by which the invoice should be issued? It should be issued within 30 days of providing the service. So in this case, when the invoice should be issued, the invoice should be issued for the first part within 30 days from 1st April, second part within 30 days from 1st July, third part within first 30 days from 1st October, and within 30 days from 1st January. The aggregate turnover of Sangri Service Limited, Delhi, exceeded 20 lakhs on 12th August. He applied for registration on 3rd September and was granted the registration certificate on 6th September. You are required to advise Sangri as to what is the effective date of registration in its case. It also sought your advice regarding the period for issuance of revised tax invoice. So, first question, what is the effective date of registration in this question number 3? What is the effective date of registration in question number 3? What is the effective date of registration? What happened? No reply. What is the effective date of registration in question number 3? Okay, some network problem. Just a second. Is the screen visible now? Is the screen visible now? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Is the screen visible now? Type in the chat box yes or no. Okay. So third question, what is the effective date of registration? What is the effective date of registration in the third question? What happened? No reply. So when this person has become liable for registration, 12th August. So when he has applied for registration, 3rd September. Within how many days he has to apply? Within 30 days. Did he apply within 30 days? Yes, he has applied. When the registration certificate was granted? 6th September. So here, since the registration is applied within 30 days, effective date of registration is date when he become liable for registration. That is 12th August. Very good. So from 12th August to 6th September, whatever invoices he has issued, what he has to do? He has to issue a revised invoice. Shyam Fabrics has opted for composition levy scheme in the current financial year. It has approached you for advice whether it is mandatory for it to issue a tax invoice. So for composition levy dealer, what is the invoice we are going to issue? That is the bill of supply. Okay. Next, Royal Fashions, a registered supplier of designer outfit in Delhi, decides to exhibit its product in a fashion show being organized at Hotel Park Royal in Delhi on 4th January. For the occasion, it gets service by way of makeover of models from Aura Beauty Services, Ashok Vihar, for which a consideration of 5 lakhs, excluding GST, has been charged. The Aura Beauty Services issued a duly signed tax invoice on 10th February showing the lump sum amount of 5,90,000 inclusive of CGST and SGST 9% each. Answer the following question. Whether the tax invoice has been issued within the time limit. So first question is whether the tax invoice has been issued within time limit, yes or no. Whether tax invoice has been issued within the time limit, yes or no. some network issue is there again and again, and my connection is disconnected. So in that case, the invoice is not issued within the time limit prescribed. And as per the section 31 services, the invoice should be issued within 30 days. So invoice is not issued within 30 days. And next question was whether the inclusive of tax is correct or not. In the tax invoice, the value is mentioned as 5,90,000. The breakup of tax is not given, whether that is correct or not. So in case of GST, the breakup of tax should be given separately in the tax invoice. So with this, we complete our GST classes. So we'll just recapitulate what we have taken or understood in the GST, each chapter by chapter. Just a second, I'll share the screen. 1 minute. Just a second, I'll download all the chapters. Some network problem is there. 1 minute. So first chapter 1 was regarding the introduction. In introduction, we have seen what is the direct tax, what is indirect tax, then what are the features of indirect tax, then how GST evolved in India, what is the concept of GST, what is the need of GST, what is the framework as introduced, then the benefits of GST and the constitutional provisions. These things we have seen in chapter 1. And in chapter 2, we have seen about the meaning of supply with consideration in the course of furtherance of business. Then we have understood import of service with consideration whether or not in the course of furtherance of business is treated as supply. Then we have seen 3 schedule 1, schedule 2, schedule 3. Schedule 1 is activities treated as supply even without consideration. Activities classified either supply of goods or supply of services, and activities neither supply of goods or neither supply of service. So first part is schedule 1, then schedule 2 is a classification of either supply of goods or supply of service. Schedule 3 is neither supply of goods nor supply of service. Next is concept of composite and mixed supply. We have seen in chapter 2. Then in chapter 3, we have seen what is the extent and commencement of the GST, that is what is India, how the taxation is there. Then levy and collection of CGST and SGST, that is section 9 we have seen. In section 9, we have seen what is RCM, what is the list of services on which RCM is applicable, and then we have seen about the composition levy. And then in the next chapter, we have seen about exemptions. So exemptions, there are goods and services, the power is given to the council to grant the exemptions. So for us, services exemption is important. All the services exemption you need to know and study and understand the exemptions part. Next chapter is time of supply and value of supply chapter. In this time of supply and value of supply, time of supply deals with when the tax should be paid. When the liability to pay the tax arises, that we have to see, and based on that, the tax has to be paid. In that we have seen when the invoice should be raised, what is the last date for raising the invoice, all those details we have seen in the time of supply. And in case of value of supply comes when at what value the tax should be paid. To find out the taxable value of supply should be we have understood. Then we have seen input tax credit. In input tax credit, we have understood what is the conditions and eligibility for claiming the input tax credit. Then what is block credit, what is apportionment of credit, then availability of credit in special circumstances, and how ITC is utilized. Those part we have seen in this chapter. And then we have seen the registration. In registration, we have seen who are all the person liable for registration, then who are all the person liable for registration, who are person not liable for registration. Then registration in certain cases. Then we have seen the compulsory registration in certain cases. Then we have seen the this one, amendment of registration, cancellation of registration, all those options we have seen in the GSTR 1. In the registration chapter, then we have seen the tax invoice, debit note, what are the documents, and last part is the returns chapter. So with this we complete our GST portion. Any doubt you have, you can ask me. Any doubt? No doubts? Is my voice audible? So any doubt? Okay, with this we complete the GST chapter. So all the best for your exams. Read the chapter well, do the practicals, and understand the subject. All the subjects have equal importance in the IPCC level. So 8 subjects we are having. All the chapters are important. You have to pass in all the chapters. There is no option. So all the best for your future, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the session now.
Thank you, sir.